As an example, consider the task manager who just received an additional assignment from the project manager to look into contract processing time. The project manager has a feeling that processing time is too long and wants some data to either confirm or dispel his concerns. The task manager prepares a check sheet and starts collecting data on the number of days required to process individual contracts during the past year. He collects a lot of data because every purchase associated with the project is a contract, even routine purchases of office supplies. He then arranges the data sequentially in a frequency table that shows the number of days required for processing and the number of contracts. The collected data show that contract processing time ranged from 16 to 65 days during the period examined. A total of 25 contracts were awarded during this time. To enhance clarity in this example, data have been shown in 5 columns. If the data were shown in 1 or 2 columns, it would be difficult to make any sense of them. That is where a histogram comes in. The first step in designing a histogram is to select a number of bars to appear on the chart. This is called the class interval. The histogram will not display each number of processing days as a separate bar. Instead, numbers of days will be grouped together into classes. This can be a little tricky. If too many classes are used, the bar tends to be rather low and of similar height, making analysis difficult. If too few classes are used, bars tend to be rather high and of similar height, again making analysis difficult. The appropriate number of classes is determined by taking the square root of the number of observations or data points. The data include 25 contracts, which is the number of observations. So the appropriate number of classes is the square root of 25 or 5. In other words, we need to have 5 bars in our histogram. Now each of these bars have to be a certain length. How do we find this length? Now let's have a look in our table. We have 16 days as the minimum number of days and the maximum number of days is 65. So if you consider the range between these two extremes, you find that we got 16 all the way to 65. Now we need to also include these endpoints. Now if we include the endpoints, hence 16 and 65 are also including, we find, alright, first we find the range 65 minus 16 to get this middle number, which is gives us 49. Now if you're also including 16, we need to also add that extra 1, giving us 50. So the range is 50, including the 2 endpoints. Now if you've got 5 classes and we've got 50 as the range, then what is the width of each column, or the class width? In other words, if we have a histogram, we need to consider what each of these classes, the width of these classes are. So what do? We have the range divided by the number of classes. So we have 5. Let's say the final one will look something like this, and what gives us 10. So the width of each of these columns needs to be 10 inclusive. So let's go and look at the first column. Now if we have the first column as 16, so we have 16 and we need to add 10 more, well 10 numbers. Each of these need to be a 10. So the first one must be 16 and the last one must be 25, because inclusive 16 and 25 we get 10 numbers. So the next one is 26 to, what do you think, 35, and so on. Each bar on the histogram will include 10 processing days. This is how the actual histogram looks like. So the form of the display makes interpretation a bit easier. This task manager can tell at a glance that processing time seems to form a normal distribution. It seems to follow a bell-shaped curve. And the most frequent processing time for contracts awarded during the period studied was 30 6 to 45 days. Fewer contracts and about the same number each require 26 to 35 or 46 to 55 days. And still fewer and again about the same number of each require 16 to 25 or 56 to 65 days. From these data, the task manager could probably determine an average processing time that might be useful for planning. The data might also suggest something about the nature of contracts or the award process. The data shown may suggest that an average processing time would be relevant for planning purposes. If the data showed large numbers of contracts at the low end and large numbers at the high end, the task manager might not consider an average time to be useful. Rather, he might do further analysis to determine why some contracts are processed quickly and some require a much longer time. Additional analysis will require additional tools.